Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jason. I'm here from Oz Arab Media, here spending the next half an hour or so with the recipient of this year's Global Achievement for World Kindness. I'm here joined by Bassem Tadros. Bassem, thanks for your time.
Hi, Jason. Thank you for having me. It's nice to be with you and on Oz Arab Media. It's a privilege.
It's a great privilege as well. So obviously you're a man of many hats. Could you please tell us a little bit more about the particular things that you get yourself involved with and some of the things that might have led to this award?
Sure. Yeah. Look, I'm heavily involved in the community here in Perth in Western Australia. I am a performance coach. I'm an author. I've got a couple of books, 3 Steps to Inspiration for Life, which is the first book I wrote back in 2012, and The Science of Being, which is one that I'm actually in the process of finishing up and publishing soon. And I just generally love working with people and helping people from all sorts of different backgrounds. I predominantly work with people in corporate and business owners. Because that's my background. I came from a corporate background working for a Fortune 500 company. And, in the last 10 years, I've found myself in the position of being, self-employed as a consultant, doing coaching, training. And so it's a real joy for me to work with people and to help them improve their communication skills, to help them improve their ability to provide their services and to help others in the best possible way. And that's, I guess, where kindness comes in. I've been recognized for some of my efforts. And it's nice kindness doesn't look for recognition. It's something that really should be the basis of the foundation of what we do, especially for working with people. But it's always a nice thing to have to receive something that recognizes your efforts.
Definitely. So, like I said, there's a lot to cover there, but could you just tell us briefly, is this something that you've gotten to more or less by yourself, individual journey? Or would you say there are a few people that have stuck by you, that have helped you along this way, helped develop you maybe personally or corporately, as you said?
Yeah, definitely. Look, good question. And I think no man is an island. I think every human being has the capacity to shine and to have real greatness in whatever they choose to do, but we can't do it alone. One of the common examples I say to people, if you're really good at what you do, let's say you're a heart surgeon, cardiac surgeon, or neurosurgeon, you wouldn't operate on your own heart or your own head. You need to trust and to allow somebody else to work on you. So all my achievements in my life have had some involvement of other people. I've had mentors. I've been lucky enough to meet some great people in my life that have coached me. I've had professional coaches. I've had work mentors and work relationships with senior people in the organization when I worked for a Fortune 500 company, international, and these people's inputs has always really been helpful to lift my standards, to improve my knowledge. And I think that's really important, and a lot of people need to be looking for more of that. How can they improve what they do in business? How could they get better at what they do in general? Even as a father, I get inspired by other fathers, and I look at my father for the good things that he's done and the things that he hasn't done that I can learn from, so that I can be a better father, and as a husband, and so on.
Wonderful. That's really interesting. So I find it really interesting. A lot of the roles that you have at the same time. I'm really interested in what ways, if you can get into a bit more details in terms of what unique characteristics of each role that you have, how do they play in to feed each other and basically make you a better human being and better able to contribute to, obviously getting recognized for this award?
Sure. Look, I'll start at the start. I come from a migrant family that moved to Australia, to Sydney back in 1991. We moved here from Egypt, so I spoke Arabic and I spoke Greek Cypriot, but I didn't speak English at all. So I had to learn the language. And I think one of the things when I look back is adaptability, adapting and being able to acclimatize to the place that we're in, the culture, the people, the language, and so on. Then moving forward a little bit after that, I remember going through my corporate life and feeling like I'm going through a midlife crisis at 25 because of stress and familial stress, work stress, different kinds of stresses, and looking around going, what are the answers? What are the solutions? How do I improve as a person, as a professional, and become a better version of me? And so when I went searching for those answers and I found them for myself, the good news was, how can I share this with the world? Why didn't we learn this at school? And what can I do to improve other people's lives and share some of the learning, some of the journey with others? And so that's how I got into what I do now. People often ask, like, how did you become a coach or a strategist or a communications trainer? And I say, well, I've taken my own life experiences and the learnings and solutions that I've been able to apply, and then I've started to share that with others. And I'm doing that in multiple different streams, through communication programs, through my books, through an online training course, through what I do live, going and visiting business owners and corporates. That's one of the things that I'm doing.
Interesting. I like that because, it's very traditional to get your education from schooling and institutions, but you shared more about, hey, education can come from experience, background, difficult personal, going through these things can teach you a lot about, how to deal with people. And I think that's really obviously what's shaped you, and how you think, how you've worked through your own progress can help other people work through their own. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you, you work with basically every different age demographic as well, many different cultures. Who's the target audience?
Yeah, look, I have worked with many different age groups. When I started doing what I do as a coach, I was focused predominantly and heavily on hypnotherapy. So I found myself hypnotizing or unhypnotizing people to get rid of addictions, smoking, drinking, that kind of thing for people. And so that was kind of by default. That's where I found myself going towards. But then I had to pull that back a little bit, and I spend 80% of my time now working with professionals and high achievers and business owners and in corporate and in groups, and 20% of my time with individuals. I still see individuals for coaching and clinical hypnotherapy, but my whole model's changed, and I think I know why that is. When you work for a whole career for 14 years for a big multinational company, there's processes and there's departments and there's structures that you're guided within. But when you're a business owner and you go out and start something from scratch, you don't often have those structures, and so you try and become everything for everyone, and then you learn very quickly that you really need to niche and focus strategically on what areas you enjoy working on, and that you can create more leverage and bring out the best results for yourself and for others. And so, I've been navigating that for the last 10 years. And I really enjoy working with the high achievers. This is often the people that don't know when to switch off. They work so hard, they work till late, and they're passionate about what they do. They love what they do, and they just wanted to learn how to take some time to reset.
Okay, so could you? Obviously, you might have gone through a lot of maybe personal but professional difficulties. It might be in dealing with people. Obviously, counseling and coaching cannot be an easy task. You're helping someone go through their own, basically climb their own mountain. So in what ways have you dealt with those challenges, someone else's challenges and burdens, and managing your own? What are some in particular examples you can give us, and how'd you get over those?
Yeah, I like what you said earlier about the importance of life learnings and life skills versus just reading something in a book or doing it in a course. And I think what I find is the more authentic and the more true I am to what I'm doing, and that it's based on lived experiences rather than certificates or books or something that I've learned in a course, the better the results are and the better the impact that I can help people with. So one of the best things that I've learned over the 10 years of helping different people from different walks of life is never to take on their troubles or their challenges. In fact, one of the best first strategies that I have is nothing's broken. So some people might come to me with the philosophy or the idea that something's broken that needs to be fixed. But in my point of view, or the way that I perceive the situation with any client, whether it's a high achiever or someone that's trying to get rid of an addiction or whatever it is, or people with issues that need to learn how to communicate and better conflict resolute in the workplace or with family, the way I look at it is it's a strategy. They have a strategy, and that strategy to some capacity has worked for them and has gotten them to where they are. And all we need to do is identify what parts of the strategy is working and what parts of the strategy do we need to improve to build upon so that they can get better outcomes and better results. When you see it that way, that nothing's broken, that person's not wrong or right or good or bad, there's no judgment. So I'm not even really in a place of thinking that I'm more superior or better or that I have the solutions to their problems. Nothing like this. It comes from a much better neutral grounds of going, okay, what's your strategy? Where are you at? Where do you want to be? Now, how do we create a new strategy? Because if we don't, you're going to keep doing the same thing that's giving you the same outcome. And we know that's the definition of insanity, right? So without any judgment, but just observation, it's to get them to see that. And then to get them, the next step is to get them to have the awareness to continue to build and improve their own skills and their own self-esteem and their own confidence and their own strategy that's going to take them to the place where they want to be.
Okay. So on the concept of kindness, in promoting kindness in general, are there any sort of difficulties you find in that? Or do you think that sort of comes naturally to humans, that they need to just sort of bring it out of themselves, or where does that come from? How do you have difficulties in promoting kindness?
I think kindness for us is probably like oxygen. It's necessary. It's something that we all have in kind and in general in our nature, but we need to practice it better. So some people know that oxygen is their life force and they need to breathe, but they're not breathing deep enough, or they hold their breath without consciously thinking about it when they're stressed. They get tense in their shoulders. This is why people get shoulder pains and neck pains, is the tension of stress, and they hold their breath. They constrict their life force, their energy. And it's the same thing with kindness. So kindness is something that we're born with. Our essence is kindness and it's love. But do we practice it enough? People get in a conflict situation and they think they need to be right. And I often teach them, can you be kind instead of being right? Is it okay that you choose the philosophy of I'll be kind rather than right, and figure it out from there? Because maybe you're both right. It doesn't have to be that one's right, one's wrong. But can you be kind? And so it's easy for people to be kind when they're receiving kindness. But the challenge here is, can you be kind when someone's unkind? And people really need to learn to be more kind, apply generously more kindness when they're receiving the unkindness. And that's not from a place of submission or passiveness. It's not about passive aggressive. It's not about being naive either, because some people mistaken the fact that you're generous of spirit, you're generous of kindness, maybe you're just naive. Not at all. I think that it's important to consider that the kindness is coming from a place of abundance. It's coming from a place of, how can I see the best in you to bring out the best in you, rather than giving you back more of what you're giving me, kind of thing. And if we could do that, if the world could do that, can you imagine the impact that would have on the world? First of all, we'd probably have no wars to speak of. We'd have no more racial hatred. We'd have more acceptance. We'd have more kindness of understanding. A lot of the time when there's conflict resolution pieces, I ask people, are you listening? Are you communicating? Are you seeking to understand? Because often people assume, they think they understood what the person's saying before the person's even finished, and they're looking for a reply or an answer. In kindness, let's say in the simple form of communication, it's just giving someone the chance to really feel understood. And I find that sometimes giving someone that kind of respect helps them, even to the capacity or to the degree of that it's greater than love. So, with you here, Jason, if I was to give you like 100% the respect, the attention that you deserve, and I just really listen to what you're saying, especially during a time of challenge for you, you would feel at the very least understood. And that, I think, in our human nature, can actually feel sometimes even more significant than feeling love, because you can have loved ones that don't understand each other, and that can be the most frustrating thing.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. So, look, you obviously work in corporate spaces, and much of the corporate sort of stereotype is that it's cold, it's cutthroat, it's a lot of disagreeable people. There's no place for kindness. There's no place for empathy and compassion. You got to make the deal. You got to, basically, it's all about yourself, and it's all about how the business can grow and profit. And for you, is that a stereotype that deserves recognition, or there's no merit whatsoever? That's not what you've seen in corporate. That people are actually open to kindness. So, what can you speak into the sort of resistance that you might get from the culture, from individuals?
You mentioned the key word, and it is culture. I have seen it in corporate, in small, medium, and really large departments and companies, where there is a sense of competition or a sense of people are afraid for the security of their job. And so that's where they practice exactly what you're talking about, which is, the job security thing makes them tighten up about, their generosity of sharing information or helping others or being kind or showing kindness. So they show the opposite, which is the cold, calculated, almost very heavy in here. And I liken it to, there's a difference between high IQ and high EQ. IQ being obviously your intelligence in your brain, and EQ being your emotional intelligence. And I think people need to raise that in both, in small business, medium businesses, large businesses. And the more they do that, then they can read the room better. They can communicate better. They can express kindness with a more generous spirit for kindness, with less worries about their job security and whatever else. I think the best leaders in any business are the ones that are trying to give everything they can to their team, to people that they work with, and helping their team, supporting their team. And they're the leaders no one wants to leave. But the opposite is true. People don't leave companies, they leave bad managers, where if they're experiencing the opposite, managers that are taking credit for their work or whatever else, that creates a lot of stress. We've seen, I think, a huge cultural shift in the business world before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. We've seen that from the culture change of people working from an office environment to people working from home, to now people have hybrid arrangements, to now people are being encouraged to work more from the office and less from home, that sort of thing. So that there's a cultural shift or reshaping after and during and post-COVID. The opposite is also true about mental health. So now businesses are starting to consider, and I think I've read it somewhere, that the government's actually also implementing laws and putting those in the regulations of health and safety, that mental health is incorporated in there. And I think that's really important. So this is now shifting culture of business to start to consider other people, to consider other people's emotions. And it's a very interesting one, because I think the reason that it never happened, where we had mental health under the category of health and safety, is because it's easy and tangible to be able to document a physical strain or a physical injury or a physical incident. But how can you do that about emotional or mental situation that comes from the prolonged level of stress or too much work? And so this is a shift, and I think everybody has to come along for the ride now. Even the managers that are still using the dinosaur age management techniques are going to have to step up, or they're going to feel the pinch of it, right? And so the culture will shift towards more kindness, more empathy, and everybody has a chance here to learn. And I make a big difference when I work with businesses about the difference between management and leadership. Anybody can do the management. Management's usually the capacity of managing resources, but people need to be led. People need to be, inspired to do what they do. Otherwise, they end up feeling a little bit unloved, if you like. So yeah, does that help answer your question, or did I?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll extend a bit. You made a point about sort of, obviously work from home. That was sort of a big pillar on, what changes the culture in work. That's not really something that people were used to for the past, 200 years of working in industrial organizations.
Yeah.
Can you speak to, given that we've been 200 years in working in offices, factories, working in buildings, and not necessarily physically plowing the ground anymore, has the nature of work, do you think, contributed to the way in which we process stress and the way in which we process emotions and corporate engagements? And has it got to do with more personal problems, the world's problems? What do you see, lying at the core of many of the stresses that people have to deal with?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and it's a very broad question. I'll try and go to where my mind's gone with it. And my mind's gone with, we have the age of, right now we're in the age of information age, which I think it's even over information with the access to the internet and everything else. Prior to this age, there was the industrial age with factories and farming and everything else, right? And so has there been a shift? 100%. There's always been, that progressive shift from the industrial to the information age. Even the introduction of AI recently, and before that, it was the introduction to robotics in manufacturing and so on, right? And so there's always shifts going on the planet, and we can feel them globally. But if we look at it locally, how does that change how I do work, or how I approach business, or how I work with other people? And if we can start to apply that, we're always shifting, we're always transitioning, we're always being challenged to step up globally and locally. And so the idea is then people need to move with that shift rather than resist, or rather than feel the strain or push against it. Time's moving, we've got to move with it. And all of life gives us clues. Even the man that you are, Jason, you weren't always this handsome, strapping young man that you are. You're one stage a baby, an infant that was just born. Still Jason. And then you were, a toddler, and you were learning and transitioning through stages. And you have those stages within you. So people need to honor the collective, the whole, so to speak. And I think that comes back to the holistic approach of life. But people are really quick to forget these things and to just judge everything on a local level. And we see that in different industries. We even see that in the medical field. Like, you go in and you say you have a sore foot, and they don't assess all of your body. They just focus. They'll send you specifically to a foot doctor, to a podiatrist, and they'll just look specifically to your foot. But what about your foot's attached to your ankle and to your leg? Did the issue happen here, or did it happen here? What about the rest of your body? What are you eating? Could it be gout? It's not just the foot. There's many things to it. And so this is where people need to be holistically assessing everything, whether it's business or the way they do business, economics, finances, the difference in the shift. I want to talk about the age of over-information a little bit as well, because there's a lot of people confused. There's so much information, they don't know what source of information to trust anymore. And this is where I think we all need to learn to come back to trusting our heart, to learn to reconnect within who we are. Within a world full of noise, if you don't know who you are, you're like a little shrub in the middle of the ocean. You'll get blown away by everything, the wind, the water, the waves, everything. So you've got to stand for something. And that doesn't mean to be hard-headed and just narrow-minded, but learn who you are, learn your foundations. And if we look back to the essence of what I'm saying, the ancients said it best: know thyself. This is the greatest investment people can make, is to invest in themselves. Invest time, invest energy, get to know what they like, what they don't like, what they stand for, what their values are, or else they'll be dictated to with all this bombardment of over-information that moves them from here to there, to here to there. and they won't have any stability within their alignment of their core self, not just their mental health or their physical health, even their spiritual health. Everything needs to be in alignment so that they're connected to that source being, that intelligence of life that creates universes. And then they feel like they're above whatever the worldly issue is. And they know who they are and what they stand for. They know who they are at their core of their being. A lot of people forget we're human beings. They're so focused in this busy life of doing and doing and doing and doing. And they forget that we're human beings, not human doings.
Mm-hmm. That was a really good answer. I think one of the things that I'm really curious to hear your thoughts about is, you mentioned right at the beginning, there's use for a certificate, there's use for education and book learning. You said that, but people can go through all of these stages in life, but yet not know how to deal with stress. Is that something that you see in the future? Is that something that, given your work, is there room for that in schools? Is there room for that in these institutions? Or is it, look, you're going to do your work here, they're going to do their work here. If people turn out, are you going to work separately with people? Or do you see yourself working with the youth more, with schools more, in these educational systems, basically at the root, before these problems arise? Is there room for that?
Definitely, there's always room for that. I mean, look, we're seeing people seeking self-education, self-learning outside of the schooling systems anyway, and outside of the normal brick and mortar universities. To answer your question at the heart of, or the beginning of your question, which is, look, imagine for me, myself, if I had a certificate on the wall that said I'm a doctor, Dr. Bassem Tadros, but I've never practiced a day of being in the field of my doctorate, like let's say general practitioner. Yeah, if I've never practiced it, can I really still say hand on heart that I'm a doctor just because I have that qualification? And for me, that feels like it wouldn't be authentic. Versus the difference of having the life experience and doing things, regardless of my certificates and my qualifications. Because I've also seen young interns come out of a marketing degree, they spent 3 to 5 years doing this thing, and they won't get a job. Big companies won't give them a chance because they don't have the work experience. So that's another sort of illustration from a different angle. That said, we're also seeing billionaires, the richest man on the planet is saying, I wouldn't go to uni, I wouldn't go to a day of school, I'd send my children to spend time learning and getting hands-on experience based on their learning ability. And so I don't think in order to be successful or to be wealthy or to be really good at what you do, that you have to go to a school or a uni. But that said, in order to get recognized and to have credibility, you still have to have some qualification or something, some recognition to show for it. So it's kind of a catch-22 to some degree, depending on who you are and what you do. For example, an engineer is not going to get an engineering job without having gone to uni and getting a formal qualification as an engineer. That said, he's then going to have to compete with other engineers that have the same formal qualification because of experience, and they're going to get paid based on what experience they have and get evaluated in that way.
So let me ask you this: you work with CEOs and businessmen and women and people that have built basically big empires. Yeah. They know what they're doing. They're competent. They've studied this, studied that. They've got the life experience. Yet they can't handle stress. What is it about stress? Is it some sort of external thing that they need to integrate into their being to be able to understand? Is it, why are we so poor? Why can we be so good with numbers, so good with books, so good with X, Y, Z, but we can't understand the human psyche? Why do you think that?
It's a really good question. Thank you for redirecting it back to the stress component, because I kind of dealt on the credibility and the qualification side. So stress, no one is ever immune from stress. Nobody. Anybody on the planet that tells you they're immune to stress is not pushing themselves hard enough. So regardless of people's titles, qualifications, even pay grade, they're still going to be exposed to some level of stress. Sometimes the more senior you are and the higher your level is in a company, like a CEO, director, etc., there's more stress. So it's really, the onus is on each of those people, those individuals, to learn to manage that stress in the best way possible. And if they don't know how to manage it, then they're just going to perpetuate it, and they're going to prolong it, and they're going to suffer. And then you're going to go from simple symptoms of stress to chronic symptoms of stress, which we then start to see in the form of not just pains and aches to disease and illness. And so I think people really need to learn to manage stress. I think it's the most important thing. And what does that have to do with, for example, kindness and what we started talking about, everything? Because you'll find people that are really stressed are less likely to be kind. People that can manage stress can be really kind. And where would the kindness start? I think the first place is to be kind to yourself. If you can't give away what you haven't got, if you can build up your own levels of kindness within you, then you can learn to be kind to others. If you can lift your levels and elevate your levels of emotional intelligence to deal and manage stress in the healthiest way possible, not just drinking or not just smoking or not just social aspects of dealing with stress that are masking it, but really dealing with it at a core level, then you can help others. You can start, it's like a circle, a cycle, like most of life. If you can manage and understand, have awareness of your own feelings, then you could help yourself, for starters, and then you could do it for others. You can read the room. You can understand what's happening with other people. You can understand it's not about you when someone's being a bit short, that just they're dealing with stress and this is the best way they know how to at the moment. And then you can learn to lead people out of that state and bring in a whole new different state. So stress is an important area. I mean, just before we went into COVID at the end of 2019, I think it was, or could have been a bit earlier, I created a really good stress management online program. And I created this Bass Academy, on Thinkific, the learning platform. And I was sharing it with people. It was valued at over $550 just to do the course for module 17 videos and downloadable exercises and everything. And then I made it completely free. When COVID happened, I just thought everybody on the planet that has any feelings is going to feel some levels of stress because of what's happening. If it's not the lockdowns, it's something, right? Some people are going to be afraid of the virus. Some people are going to be afraid of what the government's putting out as the solution. And fear promotes stress. They feed each other. And so I created this program and made it completely free. But then I started to add it as value add. I'd go out and see the CEO of a company. I'd say, here you go. I'm going to give you this program. Give it to the rest of your organization. Share it with them. They're all welcome to use it. And yeah, it's currently one of my best programs that I've got out there on the World Wide Web. And if there's something I'm doing to help people, again, speaking of kindness, sometimes I just make things free. I give it to people because I don't want money to be the objection kind of thing in the way of it.
Okay, that's actually a good point. I want to quickly touch on this. We've been talking about stress, and that's a lot of your work, and how stress is often, like you mentioned, a barrier, an impediment, often a reason not to be kind. Yeah. Would you say money is another reason, another impediment to being kind?
Money, I like to think of it, everything I've studied and learned personally about money is an amplifier. If you're a natural giving person and you're a kind person, if you've got more money, you're going to do more with it. You're going to give and you're going to help. If you're a natural, let's say the opposite of that, being kind, then you're going to do that with money. It's just going to amplify what your capacity is and what you do with it. So money is this thing that amplifies whatever it is. If we hear about Mother Teresa and the good that she did. Well, all the money that came to her from donations, she was using that to help other people. So you don't have to be the richest man to do good with money. I think a little goes a long way in helping others. And sometimes there's smart ways of doing things. It doesn't have to be like the most expensive and rich ways. But my thoughts are, the more money you have, the more good you can do with it. There's nothing wrong with money. It's what either good people do with it or what the opposite of good people do with it. Some people can take it and create peaceful things. Some people can take it and create more wars, just to create more money, which is obviously not the right thing for humanity or for our planet.
That's a good point. I think we've quite well established that there's nothing wrong with the money itself. That doesn't really make sense to say money is kind or not. Like you said, the real focus is the human being in control of the money, the character of the person.
Definitely.
Can you briefly summarize as well,
Sure.
in the context of this award, in the context of your personal and professional life? Can you tell us basically some tips and bits of advice that you've collected along the way, things that really have stuck with you and have helped you in sharing kindness, in being compassionate, some real bits of advice that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, look, I like to connect with people. I think that connection is one of the huge missed things in humanity. Our neurology, the way that we were built was to connect with everybody and to help others, and that's the way we're built. It doesn't take a lot of effort for us to do that, but the programming and the conditioning over many years on the planet has been to make people kind of more self-centered and think more about what they can benefit or what's in it for me, what can I get out of it. And my whole ethos in philosophy in this life has been about how can I support my family more. It started out with my siblings and my parents as a kid, and I was always there for my sisters and my parents. And then as I got older, it was like, how can I support my friends? How can I support people I work with? And now with my wife and kids, how can I support a larger community as well as my own immediate family? And so it's just a decision, like anything else, that people have to make for themselves. Do I want to decide to be a kind person, or do I want to decide to be something else? And there's nothing wrong or right about that. It's a decision, and everybody has their own different capacity, their own different meaning of it. You can train people in this, but it's going to come back to their attitude. And if their attitude is an attitude of, without sounding cliche or poetic, but if it's an attitude of gratitude and they're grateful for everything in their life and they're grateful for their breath in the morning, then they're going to naturally be kind people. But if they're not grateful and everything upsets them and everything bothers them and they're worried about being offended, then obviously they're not even kind to themselves. How are they going to be kind to anybody else? With this world kindness movement and their recognition, I got involved with it probably over 5 years ago, maybe a bit more. And I was on the different seat as yourself. I was interviewing someone for a community TV here in WA who was the recipient of a recognition as, I think he was the World Kindness Ambassador or World Kindness Leader of some kind of recognition that he got 5 years ago. I interviewed him. His name is Michael Lloyd White, Australian. He's now living in the US because of the World Kindness movement. And I got to learn about them. I got passionate about the World Kindness movement. I didn't do a lot with it, but I continued to be me and just involved with my community and doing what I do. And this year in 2023, I got nominated by someone in the community for what I'm doing. And so it was really good to be a recipient of this year's World Kindness movement, kindness champion. I think that's the proper title. But there is actually a movement. So people can look at the World Kindness movement, get involved with it. They could look at World Kindness Australia, World Kindness USA. There's different World Kindness movements within each country as well, not just the global movement. So again, people can get involved with that and look into that itself, but it doesn't require much to be a kindness ambassador. It's just spreading more kindness. And I think like anything, it starts with being kind to self. Taking care of yourself is really important, especially at this time in our lives. And then it's natural and easy to be kind to others when you're kind within you.
Fantastic. I think we'll wrap it up there, Bassem. Thanks again for your time. Just before we go there, is there anything that you'd like to add? Is there anything that you really want to reiterate or to leave as a bookend for everyone watching? What's a bit of advice that you'd like to stick with people?
Yeah. I want to keep it simple. I think if you want to, I mean, if you like the conversation that we've had here, I'm feeling like it's only the beginning of many that I'll be having with Oz Arab Media. Connect with me if you've got some questions or anything we've talked about resonates. Bassem Tadros, as the name is on the screen, .org is my full name, or Bass Tadros, because as you know, in Australia, we like to shorten everything, which is just BASS Tadros.com. Either will take you to my website. You can see what I'm doing and we can connect further. But what I want to leave people with in terms of this idea of kindness, just like I said with self, especially people that are carers. I do a lot of work with private hospitals, with nurses and doctors, doing coaching for them. And I realize that the more caring people are by nature and their titles and their jobs, the less they take the time to take care of themselves. So we need to reverse that. We need to turn that on its head, where as a carer, you care so much for people, whether you're a mother or a professional or both. Learn to take care of yourself. This will help you recharge and re-energize, and then you can help others and care for others better. Whereas if you don't do that enough, this is where we see burnout. This is where we see that people have gone from doing the job that they love to feeling like they can't do it anymore because they just can't cope. And so sometimes the coping with that is learning to deal with stresses as well, as taking good care of yourself. And a lot of people invest in so many things. People have no issues with paying maintenance for their house, their car, but often a lot of humans just don't know when to take good care of themselves. And, it's not just about taking a holiday once a year. It's not about living for waiting for the weekend. It's got to be a little bit every day. And, my little bit every day is sometimes reminding myself to be mindful and breathing, staying here in the now, rather than thinking about too much into the future or too far into the past. Breathing and being here. And that's a simple exercise anybody could do, and they could do it in their busy life, or their workstation, or in their car, on the way to work, or wherever. So things like this, that's where it's got to start.
Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I've been joined by Bassem Tadros, the 2023 World Kindness Award winner. And he's been, like we spoke about, value adding with your course, with your book, with your consulting. I hope I've certainly been given some value. I hope the listeners have likewise been given some value and taken something from it. We can all play a part. This is not just for the consultants. This is not just for when you become stressed. Everyone has a part to play in basically making this world a better place. So it's been a fantastic time. Thanks again, Bassem, and all the best. Can you remind us where we can all find you?
Yeah, basstadros.com or bassemtadros.org. And it's been a really enjoyable conversation with you, Jason. Thank you for the kindness of your time, and I look forward to doing it again.
It's been a great pleasure. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.